I, male, 17, am an only child, and that comes with all the stereotypes associated with it. I had difficulty sharing, making friends, the whole deal. However, I've been able to form my own bonds as I got older and learned to be a more outgoing, extroverted person. So, what I'm trying to say is that I'm usually a pretty easygoing dude and I've learned to share my space with others. My parents also have tried their hardest with me and don't really shut me down because I'm just a kid, like other people tend to do. I have a pretty equal voice when it comes to family issues and stuff. However, something that made me feel isolated and caused a massive rift between me and my mom and later my dad was when they decided to adopt my cousin Neil, male, 16, without even telling me. The whole story about how Neil and his mom came into our lives is also really weird. Mom and her sister were both orphaned young. They were both adopted into a foster home together, but their relationship with their foster parents wasn't that great. And Mom's sister Ellie eventually ran away from home when she was a teenager. She never heard from her after that point, and it's always been a gaping hole in her heart. From her stories, it seems like Ellie was an amazing, protective elder sister who kept her happy when things got rough. Mom never really gets into why Ellie ran away, but I don't think her foster parents were particularly loving. I've never met them once in my life, and it doesn't take a genius to put two and two together. Now, Neil is Ellie's son, or that's the case. He contacted my mom online with details about her life that nobody except Ellie knew, and said that his mom had recently passed away. He then asked if he could come and visit us, and my mom obliged. It was clear from their conversation that Neil was Ellie's son. He then confessed and said that his mom had flaked on him and he had been living alone in a crappy one-bedroom apartment. Ellie had told him about her past, and he used the internet to track my mom down since he was desperate for her help. I felt for the guy because he was trying to keep things going as an adult, and he was a whole year younger than me. He sheepishly asked if he could spend a few nights here since he was close to getting evicted and his money was running out. Of course, all of us were more than happy to allow Neil into our home. I immediately took a liking to him and invited him to share my room with me. That meeting with Neil affected Mom. She was drawing parallels with her childhood, and it was clear she didn't want her nephew to end up in a foster system like she did. The next morning, she had a conversation inviting Neil to come live with us and focus on his schooling, while she figures out the next step with CPS and tracking down Ellie. Neil accepted living with us, but he was scared about getting the authorities involved. To keep his trust, my mom said that at least for now, she will wait for her sister to reach out to Neil, and then we can move forward. Since then, it's been 3 months. Now, it's been an adjustment for all of us, and I don't begrudge Neil living with me, but there are a few things about his behavior that made me sus. He was able to enroll in my high school after some scavenging for documents and stuff. I rarely see him attend classes. In fact, nobody in the family really knows where he is for most of the day until he comes and crashes in the evening. Apart from that, the friendliness Neil had before has slowly gone away, and the dude just acts like a grade A a-hole when my parents aren't around. He called me a spoiled rich kid and has made sharing a room with him an exhausting experience. NGL, he's basically a two-faced person. In front of my parents, especially my mom, he's the sweetest guy ever. In front of me, he's a jerk. I want to raise my concerns about all of this, but I can already tell it's going to be a lost cause. My mom keeps endlessly comparing me to Neil whenever I don't agree with her or slip up in terms of my behavior or grades. If I say anything against him, it'll just be branded as heartless. I bottled all of this in until one day when my mom sat me and my dad down and said that she wanted to legally adopt Neil. In fact, she had already started inquiring about the process without even asking Dad. Both of us were quite shocked by the decision, But my dad eventually did see her side of things while I was still unsure about how to process all these things. But I just felt like it would be a huge change that I wasn't ready for. I finally confessed that my time with my cousin hadn't been the best, and Mom didn't like my point of view at all. She said, "OP, you're not understanding the struggles your cousin had to go through at all. I would appreciate it if you tried." Now, I was trying, but I still found it weird that Neil wasn't even concerned with finding his bio mom, nor was it cool for us to adopt him like this. Since my dad also felt like it would be right for us to adopt Neil, and my paternal grandparents were the only people on my side, I took an Uber to their place because the conversation got pretty heated, and the next morning, I got a frantic call from my dad asking me to come home ASAP. It turns out Neil freaked out after Mom told him that she wanted to legally adopt him. He said that it was too soon and it would mean involving the authorities. The next morning, he was nowhere to be seen and had somehow cleaned out the house. He knew the code to the home safe, and Mom had been trusting enough to let him use her cards, so he knew about those too. I don't know how to respond to this, but it's clear that my parents don't know what to do at this point. WIBTA if I didn't immediately go back to my parents? I know they need me, but I also want to distance myself a little from all this drama before I go back to them. I feel a little bitter that this happened, and going back now is just going to make me gloat at my mom. I don't think she needs that right now. Update 1. So I called my dad back and told him I'll come back home in a few days, but to keep me posted. By that evening, Dad also showed up at his parents' house. I opened the door and blurted out a confused, "What?" And he immediately said, "Your mom isn't thinking straight, OP. She doesn't want to get the cops involved. I had a ton of my stuff stolen, so I don't care if it's her nephew or not. I called the cops and filed a report, but we got into a fight." I comforted my dad, and I agreed that Mom was acting irrationally. After a few days, things were a little more cordial between my parents, and they were talking over the phone, and I was also slowly speaking to them more often. Obviously, with Dad in the same house and understanding my point of view better, it was easier with him. The police also dropped an update on us, stating that someone fitted Neil's description had been brought in with a drunk woman who stirred up a fight at some shady casino. We'll be going over tomorrow to the police station to ID him. And the most interesting part, the woman is Neil's mom. So my mom is freaking out all over again about potentially meeting her long-lost sister. Update 2. The meeting at the police station was wild for me. Dad and especially Mom. It was Neil, and his mom was my aunt. Due to just how wild the whole situation was, Dad asked the cop if he knew whether it would be okay for our family to speak to Neil and his mom, and we got some time with them. Speaking to my aunt, it was clear that she had known about Mom for a while but refused to reach out. After running away from home, she made several bad choices which led to her reacting with resentment when she found my mom on social media. Apparently, she was in desperate need of money and trained Neil to come into our family, gain our trust, and leave when the time was right. As for Neil, he was the product of a one-night stand that Ellie had. We couldn't speak to them for hours on end. I mean, a police station isn't the same as the set for Dr. Phil, but Mom wanted her sister to be less poisoned against her and wanted her in her life. It was clear that she was a victim of circumstances, and that led to the crimes she had done. At the same time, me and Dad were kind of leaning towards not letting Neil and Ellie into our lives because their first thought when learning about Mom was how to exploit her and not to reach out to her. We discussed all of this and in the end decided that it may be best to drop charges. However, Mom realized that it would be best to not force a relationship with her sister and instead just keep the door open if they ever wanted to initiate a proper relationship. We dropped charges, and Neil and Ellie did thank us for it. They won't be staying in our city for much longer, so it's unlikely that we would see them again. Update 3. Ever since Mom got to meet her sister, she's been acting a bit weird. She does understand that it's probably for the best for her not to be too open with Ellie, especially considering how she is harboring so much resentment. But it's still tough to find and lose your sister in the span of a few weeks. She did sit me and Dad down and apologize for being too trusting of Neil and deprioritizing us. After all of that, we haven't heard from Neil or Ellie since, and maybe that's for the best. Dad and Mom have worked out their differences, and we've all moved back in together. This whole story was wild AF. And I do think I will have to be more sensitive to the issue around my mom because it affects her in a different way than me. NTA, Neil and Ellie are clearly both troubled people, but that doesn't justify their actions. Your mom has made the right choice by establishing boundaries and keeping the door open, while also not doing something stupid like letting them move in or something. Next story. So, a little backstory. My mom, 55, and Dad, 57, got a divorce when me, 30, male, and my twin brother, 30, were 13 due to our dad having an affair with our stepmom, 47, and got her pregnant with our half-sister. After the divorce, my dad married his wife, who was horrible to our mom, and it got worse when she realized that we were never going to see her as a mom in our lives. And they had 3 more children, and my stepmom had 3 daughters already. Their father had died 2 years before the affair, so they were excited to have a new dad. During the divorce, my paternal grandparents were not happy about the affair and did everything to make sure my father and his new family knew they were not welcome. They were not openly hostile, but it was obvious when it was noticeable when we would get things that they wouldn't or get invited to things they weren't. So, on to the reason for this post. My grandparents, Dad's parents, are wealthy. Think old money. In their family, there is a tradition that when you get married, you and your spouse are gifted a set of jewelry to pass down to your children. When I married my husband, we were gifted 2 sets of diamond cufflinks and a pot of diamond studs, altogether worth about $200,000. They also paid to have our house built when they found out we were expecting our own set of twins via surrogate. I know, spoiled. Now, my twin is getting married to his long-time girlfriend. My grandparents are paying for their wedding. They offered to pay for mine too, but my husband's parents paid for it, so that's why they built a house. My older stepsister, 28, is also engaged, and her wedding is scheduled after my twins. She and her fiancé aren't as well off, but my dad is paying, but not as much because he's still got to take care of our younger siblings, and my stepmom is a stay-at-home mom. Here's where I might be the AH. We were having dinner with my dad's family, and you could tell my stepsister and stepmom were upset about something. My youngest brother asked her what was wrong, and that's when she got upset. Apparently, she had asked my grandparents the color of the jewelry she was getting for her wedding. Now, they don't have a relationship with her and our other 2 stepsisters, and do not think kindly of their mother. They're only around them when it's a big family event or something for my half-siblings. So they told her she wasn't getting anything like that, especially how she behaved when the affair came out. And she made it seem like me and my brother should have chosen her mother over ours, which was not happening. So she also asked about money for a house because, again, my father can't afford it. Again, they said no, so her feelings were hurt. Plus, they're not even going to her wedding. I couldn't hold it in, so I laughed, and so did my brother. Later after dinner, my dad texted us saying we were AHs, which I can see it. So, AITA? Update. AITA for laughing at my stepsister? So, a lot has happened since my last post. I'm thankful for my judgment of NTA. Yesterday, my dad came over with my twin and my stepsister's fiancé to talk to us. He decided to ask me if I could gift my set of jewelry I got for my wedding to my soon-to-be stepbrother-in-law. I looked at him and asked him if he was crazy when he knew I was going to be giving $6,000 to them for their honeymoon. My brother asked him if he seriously asked such a stupid question. Now again, I'll remind everyone that the $6,000 is my half of the present me and my brother are giving together. So they're already getting $12,000 from us. My brother reminded my dad about his set of cufflinks he got from his wedding to our mom, and he could give it to him if it's that important. He's already paying for their wedding, so he shouldn't have to give it to him, and this will show how much I care on top of the honeymoon gift. I said that that's not happening, as I plan to let all my sons wear them when they go to their respective proms and gift them to my oldest son when he gets married. I told him he was out of line trying to take from his grandchildren, as he knew my plans for them. One thing about my dad is that he loves his grandchildren, especially my oldest son, who is in his sophomore year of high school. He instantly starts to apologize, and the whole time, my soon-to-be stepbrother-in-law is sitting there looking embarrassed because he clearly had no idea what my dad wanted him there for, until he started talking. So now I'm starting to feel that this situation is going to get worse before it gets better, especially with my twins' wedding being before my stepsisters. I just told my dad I'll talk to him on Sunday when they come over for family dinner, since it's my time to host. Now he's asking me to not bring it up in front of my mom's grandpa and grandma, since they'll both be there. I told them I wasn't planning on it because it's none of their business, and after that, I just want this conversation to end. NTA, she's your stepsister and not even related to them. They've made clear their disassociation with your step-siblings. How do they get the impression that this is suddenly going to change? It was a little unkind to openly laugh, but if this was sprung in front of you with no warning, I can understand it and, to a degree, excuse it. Next story. I, 15, female, was at my friend's, 16, female, sleepover for her birthday. It was at the end of March, and we were going to be sleeping in a tent. There was a few girls there as well, and we would all be sharing the tent. Keep in mind, it's a very big tent. When we were setting up the air mattresses, everyone was planning where they were going to sleep. We had 3 individual ones and a massive one that could fit multiple people. 5 people were going to sleep on the big air mattress with someone else. On an individual one beside them, on the right side and on the left side, there was 3 people sharing 2 beds. When I realized I didn't have anywhere to sleep, I asked them what I was going to do. And they all paused and then made up some response like, "Oh, I don't know, wherever you want, I suppose." This meant I ended up lying on the floor of the tent with nothing but a thin duvet under me and an ever thinner blanket over me. I wasn't having a good time, while everyone else was laughing. At around 1 a.m., I called my mom, who got a taxi to take me home. When the taxi was about 10 minutes away, I told everyone I was leaving and started to pack my stuff into my bag. Nobody said anything for a second, but then they all started offering solutions to where I could sleep. However, before I said I was leaving, they were all fine with letting me sleep on the floor, despite the fact I'd already told them how uncomfortable I was. I finally left at 1:30 and got home around 2 a.m. That morning I woke up to a text from the host saying that she understood why I left, but that I had been selfish after she did so much to make me so comfortable, as in she gave me a duvet and offered to let me sleep inside instead of the tent. At first, I still haven't responded to her message. But someone else from the sleepover texted me. Let's call her M. M messaged me to ask if I was all right, and I said yeah, I was, and then explained why I left. After that, M immediately started saying that I could have slept inside but refused, or I could have brought more stuff for myself. I just ignored her then. Half an hour after that, another one of my friends messaged me saying that everyone was uncomfortable in the tent, but it wasn't that bad. I haven't responded to this either. I know that they were still together when all of those messages were sent, so it feels very coordinated. I spoke to my dad about it when they said, and he told me that I did the right thing by leaving, but M keeps occasionally sending me texts asking if I've responded to the first text that the host of the sleepover sent. I'm not sure what to do or say because I'll have to see them tomorrow anyway, and I can't leave them on read forever. Edit. I responded to the host saying that I felt excluded, and that's why I left, and she called me rude and said that she tried to help. Nothing much happened at school except a few jokes I overheard between a few of them about me leaving and a few others in the main GC. I'll update if the situation gets worse. They offered to let you sleep inside by yourself away from your friends. That's not a good solution. I'm so glad you left. NTA. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl